Ken is a local boy. He's from Madison Heights, so I feel an affinity because I'm from Ferndale, which is kind of like right down the road. And he was a football player, went to University of Minnesota.
Yep.
And then how long did you play pro football?
10 years post that, yes.
10 years, so that's a pretty good run for that. And he's been in the healthcare business since then and has been at Blue Cross for about 10 years?
10 years.
10 years. So he's just been promoted. He's, I don't know if I got the title right, but Executive Vice President for the business...
Group Business Corporate Marketing.
Group Business Corporate Marketing. So basically he's in charge of, I guess, all the segments in terms of the sale, well, most of the segments in terms of the sales. And I had conversations with Ken about coaching because he's experienced coaching from being coached from, I guess, elementary school on up, and he's seen some good ones and some bad ones. And I remember asking Ken about the best coach that he ever had who inspired him, and he talked about like a special teams coach. For the Lions? Or?
Frank Gans.
Yeah.
Frank Gans was the special teams coach for the Lions.
So maybe you could talk about that, but I thought it was kind of interesting to all those coaches that a special teams coach, and it's kind of reminded me about how almost everybody I know who succeeds has had somebody in their life that has coached them and mentored them. It could be a teacher, it could be a clergyman, it could be somebody that a friend or aunt and uncle, but we've all been coached and mentored, and we know how valuable it is. So I wanted Ken to talk about how he uses the coaching philosophy in trying to lead his organization. And I'm going to ask a few of his coachees who are in the audience to talk about not only what he says he does, but what actually happens. We'll see if there's a connection between those two things.
So he's coaching and also working in this other job.
No, the coaching is within the job of leadership and leading the division that I oversee at Blue Cross.
So he's going to talk about how you apply coaching in the leadership.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So hopefully there's more benefit than the baked goods and the coffee we're receiving today for being here. Thanks, Rob. I think I've got
the big mic. Oh,
I've got one on. Paul, can you hear me okay on the? Okay, thanks. Well, first off, welcome. As you went around the room and introduced yourselves, I was in awe, thinking I should be on that chair and somebody else should be sitting up here. Truly, it's an honor and a pleasure, and I was honored and humbled when Rob asked me to do this. So I come today with a message, and the idea is we're all a product of our environment and our journey, if you will. And my journey was a little unique in the sense that, as Rob said, I grew up here locally. I went to school at the University of Minnesota. While playing football there on a scholarship, I received a marketing degree. Post that, the Steelers drafted me in 1982. Was there a year and a half, played in the USFL with a team called the Michigan Panthers, went back in the NFL, 4 with the Chargers, 4 with the Detroit Lions after that. Most notable, my last 4 were Barry Sanders' first 4, because everybody says when, then they get it. I was an offensive lineman, smartest, nice, most bright guys on the team, typically. If you ask me, that would be my answer. And so along that, I've had a lot of different experiences, and I would say in between all that, I was a bit of a serial entrepreneur, and also I would just, instead of saying it that way, I would probably say that I was a glutton for opportunity. And I'll talk a little bit about that in my comments. But to sort of set the tone to the journey, I always had a great support system all the way through my life from my parents, my family, friends, my high school football coach. And then along the way, I think the lessons that I learned the most were from people that you interacted with, and a lot of that came from being in the performance business of professional football and around coaches. Because while we think, in most cases, at our jobs, we think we're in a performance-based business, we're not being filmed of every second of the day of while you're doing your craft. But in football you are, and it's not about the old adage about yesterday's touchdowns don't win today's games, and people lose their jobs. You'll be sitting in a meeting and they'll tap them, say bring your playbook, and you're out of here. I mean, it's that kind of dog-eat-dog business. They bring 120 guys in at the beginning of camp, and there's 45 jobs at the end of the day. It's a 6-week job interview, and you're filmed in everything you do. And coaches are making selections of those players that are going to support their livelihood based on wins and losses. You don't get paid to play football, you get paid to win. The world has changed a bit now with free agency, etc. So some of those dynamics come into my personal views. Some of those dynamics that come from those experiences and those coaches that had sort of touched my life through the process. And as Rob said in his opening words, I've had good coaches and bad coaches, and I think whether you had a good boss, a bad boss, or people in your life, I think you probably, at least I tell my kids this, you'll learn more from what you don't want to be from somebody than almost in reverse as to what you want to be. So when I've had those bad coaches, I've taken great lessons away from them about what I don't want to be and how I don't want to represent myself. And so talk a little bit about that. So as this morning, I wanted to mention my journey, how I ended up at Blue Cross. I actually was involved in the off-season with the insurance industry. I got involved with a company called Dentamax. It was a national dental PPO network that started in Livonia, Michigan as a small startup company and then expanded from Michigan to Ohio and eventually across the country. I ended up progressing in that company after football to president and CEO of that company, and was tasked by the founder and our chairman to say, you need to go peddle this to the marketplace and sell it. We started with our largest customers, measured their interest, and Blue Cross Blue Shield of Michigan had the greatest interest. In addition to that, we had an employee benefits agency, ran the Dentamax company, and then I also got involved with a company out on 96 called Fowlerville Ford. Bob Smith Ford closed it, built a dealership out on the expressway. All of these balls in the air at the same time, hence my comment about a glutton for opportunity. So lots of activity, lots of different things, and the principles of coaching. So you're going, when you get into the topic here. So sort of setting the stage, I ended up at Blue Cross 10 years ago, running a subsidiary company that I sold them, and they asked me to stay on, and there was an earn-out at the end of that buyout. And so I stayed on, and then they asked me to stay post that. Did another startup company for Blue Cross called Life Secure. It's our long-term care insurance company. And then Blue Cross gave me an opportunity in my current role to run the group business, and then added corporate marketing, added a number of other things, product that Kevin runs, and the HMO company, Blue Care Network. So all of those things are in our division, and we're blessed with a great leadership team that we have, and many of those are present today. So just sort of wanted to set some context to who I am, where I came from, and then a little bit of the journey. And as you get in the environment, to me, leadership, whether you're the CEO, whether you're a supervisor, whether you're a manager or some other level of management, it's really about managing people, process, if you want to say technology, people, and process. That's really what you're chosen to do. And so some of the principles that lead, at least hopefully, and guide my behavior in that, I'll talk about some of the principles. I took the opportunity to write down some things that I think sort of come to me every day, and I think the one thing that comes to me every day, and I would call it my sort of lead principle, is manage your behavior to meet the objective. And it sounds simple, and it really is, and you can apply it to whatever you're doing. People say, my gosh, you're really disciplined. You get up, you work out 6 to 7 days a week. You do this, you work from the time you get up to the time, and you have all these rituals. And it really is setting to meet the objectives. So manage your behavior to meet the objectives. And I know all of you in the room do it. You may call it something else, but again, just some key phrases that I'll use. And that one really, to me, is really a key. And it also helps me to sift through, if I sit down with a Kevin or Sue, well, there's two Kevins, or Lisa or Phil in a conversation, we can quickly sift through by what is it the objective, that we're managing to, and really just focusing on that and getting people reset to that. I think in all of our lives we're extremely busy and we get distracted and we take our eye off the ball. So it's one of those things I always keep coming back to, and it's the way to measure yourself and make yourself accountable to whatever you've decided to do or do for somebody else or do for the organization. So that's just one of those sort of key things. I think in coaching and managing, I think as a player I remember coaches that I'll just say, and I won't use the language that was used, but they started talking about your parents, your family, your background. They started attacking you as a person. And I always thought, not only is it demeaning, and I want to retaliate against you for saying it, but it's in no way motivational. And so you learn these lessons about people that yell, scream, and they attack you as a person for a mistake that you felt worse about than anybody in the world for missing a block or making an error that cost your team productivity or good results. Think about an example at the office and how many times we get frustrated in business and we want to attack a person or we want to find fault in that person. And so the next principle is really attack a problem, not the person. And again, simple statements, simple ideas. Attack a problem, not the person. And a problem is anything that keeps you from performing at the highest level. So you say, what is a problem? It's that thing that keeps us from performing at the highest level and managing our behavior to meet the objective. So as you lead people and you think about it, it's not, just remind yourself. And sometimes we have this thing, our CEO, Dan Lepp, says, I need the 24-hour rule. Thank God Dan does that. He walks away from it, lets the emotions of the moment settle, comes back, and we address the problem as opposed to getting into maybe inappropriately addressing it. So apply the 24-hour rule, attack the problem, not the person, and as you sort of use that again as another guide, because I can tell you it can work for you or against you, and I've had it in business and football that way. Yeah, I think we talk about everybody in here has unique qualities. You have diverse experience. The inclusion of those experience and that diversity is really critical. And I think I use the example when you take coaching and you take football and you apply it to business or anything you do in your life. There are those things. So as a high school coach, I went back and I helped at my high school coach in the off season at my old high school a few times, and then I coached at Brighton High School. I live in Brighton as well. I don't have a loft for you, but I like Brighton. So I coached the high school for 7 years as a volunteer coach, and I coached the offensive line for Bill Murray, the head coach there, and it was interesting. Good head coaches at the high school level, you can't recruit people. You can all recruit people for your business to some extent within the economics, the construct of your business and the ability to do so. But high school football team is a great example. If you have a great passer, guess what happened to us in Brighton, Michigan? We had this kid land in Brighton, Michigan in June before the start of the football season. His name was Drew Henson. Guess what Brighton was before Drew Henson came to Brighton? We were a running football team. We were smash mouth. We had a great wing tee offense. Guess what Bill Murray did? He said, I'm going to play to our talents. I got this great talent. This kid's a thrower. And we turned into one of the most prolific passing offenses in high school football in Michigan. And Drew Henson went on to the University of Michigan and signed on with the Yankees, and you kind of know the tale of that story. But when you think about your organization and how your org structure works, you know, you have this perfect thing about how you think an org structure works. But Kevin's a great example. We had a need in our product area. Kevin is our president and CEO of an HMO company, a $2.5 billion revenue company, and produces a great margin, and it's one of those areas that helps support our capital plan and our enterprise. And yet we said, you know what, Kevin we're going to ask you to take on and wear another hat. We're going to ask you, because of your talent and because of the need of the organization, we adjusted our org chart. If you thought, why do you have your CEO also running your product area? Because it was a strength Kevin had, and he's talented enough to find the bandwidth to manage all of it and give those talents to the enterprise. So again, if you think about how you coach and manage a team or an enterprise, you think about your talents and how you set them in your organization. It's really important, and it gets down to managing or setting the organization, or again, to meet the talents and meet your business objectives in the best way you can. I'll talk about a couple other things, and I think it's really important. And based on the introductions, I know most of you are continually trying to convey your vision, your strategies, and produce business outcomes based around those vision, strategies, and objectives. And as you do that in running your company or your organizations, you always you always want to have a communication plan that allows you to be consistent and cascade that message that supports your strategy vision. And so we do that at Blue Cross Blue Shield. I'll give, again, our CEO, Dan Leb, credit. He has First Fridays, and he has a video that goes out, and it's streamed to everybody. And so he can actually get his message out and be consistent. I'll give you my one personal example that I'll share. Dan asked me to come in and take over our group business, which was group sales at that point. He said, it's all siloed off. It's business units, and we want to bring it under one umbrella and centralize it so that all of our customer-facing activities are aligned and supported. What we had was siloed off. We had national accounts, we had auto accounts, we had Michigan sales and service, we had interest in the HMO and it was all sort of split up and bifurcated in ways and siloed that really wasn't conducive. And so when Dan introduced me as the Senior Vice President of Group Sales and Corporate Marketing, one of the first mantras out of my mouth, and this gets back to the consistency of your vision and communication, was, and I bet if I ask Phil to say it, he'll say it. It's one team, one agenda, not opposing. One team, one agenda, not opposing. Now, people actually took that mantra, and it became part of culture. And so if you're going to shift a culture, the culture was siloed, it was opposing. When we talked to people in the marketplace, they were confused. What do you mean? Well, I talked to those people from national accounts, and this guy or gal from Michigan sales and service came in, and they're actually telling me they're better than that. And like, that's not what we wanted in the marketplace, right? One blue, one team, one agenda, not opposing. And so communicating, if you can, I have found it to be extremely valuable in coaching people, changing culture, and driving consistency, is that you want to get to mantras, consistent, simple, repetitive messages. And so you, as you cascade those things out, that's the thing. I tell people when we do goal setting, and they might oppose this because every year we argue, you got too many goals. No, I need all these. No, you don't. You need two. And I always say, here's what we'll benchmark against. If I can sneak in your house, I'll break in your house at 2 in the morning while you're sound asleep, and I can wake you up and you can recite boom, 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 boom. That's clear, crisp goal setting and understanding the objectives around our business. And that's the kind of thing, if you can get people to that level, then they can clearly manage the outcomes and the performance of your business without getting clouded in all of the things happen day to day. That, right? We get pulled. Has anybody ever get their to-do list done? I have a to-do list many days, and then I have all these other things that happen. So it's you go, I have a light day. We never have a light day, right? It's like buying a bigger house. You fill it up. You have openings in your day, it gets filled up. But just to close the thought, one piece. It's really to have clear, concise, repetitive statements, a bit of a mantra. And it's always the thing, whether I woke up at 2 in the morning or whether I was in the fourth quarter of a football game, and this is probably not politically correct anymore, if I got dinged in the head in the fourth quarter, it was something I could always go back to, those repetitive statements around what I was doing in my job on the field, and I had a sequence that I would have repetitive statements around. I can actually probably recite it for you a little bit. It's snap, count, and play. Snap, count, and play. Make your line. And I had a whole series of things that I was thinking about, because all of a sudden, when you get in a really that setting or in your day-to-day, it almost needs to become unconscious competence, right? It needs to be that thing that drives us, or that thing that we can rely on. And I think our organizations need that as well. And people relying on you as a leader and you as a coach, they need that consistency. They need to know that they can come back and you're going to put the compass back and reset the compass, and you do that in ways of consistency and messaging and focusing on the set of goals. And it's amazing, at least my experience has been many people that you lead or coach and you get to work with, pretty soon, when you first start working with them, they're all over the place, right? They don't know what you're expecting and so on. But pretty soon, with a number of engagements and a number of things, Sue, can I use the example of our monthly review of the financials that Sue produces for BCN? The first time we did that meeting was an hour and a half long. Now we get on that call, Sue's done in 15 minutes. We hit everything we want. We get to ask questions, and Sue's the consummate professional, and she just lays it all out. But and pretty soon people, they tell me I get really predictable, and that's some feedback I get from people I work with. You're really predictable, and I go, really? Because and what happens is they start to know the set of questions you're going to ask, the set of expectations, and then it starts, these interactions get, while you try to be consistent in the cadence of those, they start to become more of, they become the norm. Everybody sort of gets programmed. We all get to the same place, and you kind of roll that way. With that said, that sounds almost like, well, you're making your organization cookie cutter. Go back to the one principle I said about high school football teams. You have to coach everybody differently. I'm going to talk to Kevin Stutler, head of our specialty products, differently than I would Kevin about the product, or Sue about the BCN financials. Everybody thinks and functions a little different, and you have to allow them to, you have to give them, I always say, give them enough rope to climb the mountain or hang themselves, and then let them be who they are, because that's where the golden nuggets are, right? Using their strengths and letting them use their individuality. I'll tell you, Kevin's a lot different guy than Sue. I'm sorry to pick on the two of you. But the point is, we're all different. We all need to be managed and coached differently within a framework of the vision, the strategy, the objectives at hand, and then the business results expected. So those are some of my comments on coaching, and I've talked way longer than I wanted to, because I think it's more productive to say, what would you like to ask me? And I know Rob's chomping at the bit, so I'll just stop with that. Those are some thoughts, so, and hopefully it made some sense.
I'm going to let appreciate the comments, and we're all writing fast and furiously, and what I'd like to do, we've got many members of Ken's team here, and to talk about what it's like on the receiving end. So I'm going to ask
this is true 360 feedback,
you folks, yeah,
in front of a room though, Rob. You didn't tell me this.
But I've had the pleasure of coaching several of the folks here, and what I see is that there's a culture that I think it starts at the top. It probably starts with Dan Lepp and whatever, but the folks that work with Ken reflect this culture, and this idea of it trickles down. That's become kind of a hot word with the politics these days, but I think it permeates, maybe that's a better word, the culture, and that people at all levels begin to feel it, and pass it on to their people. So I just like to, if you want an opportunity, Kevin, maybe to say a little bit about it. Kevin's been our speaker here before, so he's used to this.
Yeah, thanks, Rob.
By the way, Kevin, he went to the Madonna concert, got home at 1 o'clock.
Drove from.
It was later than that.
And then drove from Rochester Hills, and he was the first one here this morning. So,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
I found him sleeping in his car and knocked on the window.
I'm going to crash and burn in a couple hours, though.
Yes, you will.
Just a couple things, and Ken touched on this early on. It actually made me think about what makes Ken tick and actually what he's communicated to me. You heard he was an offensive lineman. So offensive linemen, it's not about what they do. They get called when they don't do something.
That's right.
And so an offensive lineman's goal is not to be noticed in some respects. You know, it's for others, the quarterback, the D-backs, the running backs, and folks like that. And so how that plays out with Ken is it's really about the team. You don't want to be noticed. You want the whole line needs to do their job and, you know, let the quarterback and the running back get called out for what they do and do it well. And so with him, that really focuses on how we operate, because it is about the team. It's not about him. It's not about me. It's not about what his team wants. It really is best for whatever is best for the enterprise. And guess what? We all, and I'm sure you know this in your companies, have our own personal interests. And there's things, yeah, if we do this, it'll make me feel better about me, and or may help me on my goals, but it may be, you know, counter-opposed to what's best for the enterprise. The other thing he's kind of instilled on me as well is we do have this thing we call, you know, staying above the line. You know, we can all go below the line and, you know, start calling out the people and, you know, talking bad about other areas and things like that. Ken doesn't let us do that, and, you know, that's best. Let's deal with the issue, not the people. You know, there's usually an issue or problem we have to deal with. The other thing I also say, which and I got to be careful how I say this. So, Ken is always there when I need him, but he's not there when I don't need him. So what that gets to, he talked about the setting of objectives. Ken is very clear on what you have to accomplish. It also means, because he's not there, he trusts you, but he also knows you're going to come back if you need him, and he'll go knock down walls, being the offensive lineman, if you need to be knocking down walls to get things moved along. And then probably the last thing I just wanted to mention too is we all have teaching and learning moments. So maybe I give him too many teaching moments, I have too many learning moments, but we all still make mistakes, and there's things, you know, as you say, one to grow on. And so he's not afraid to, you know, talk to me about it. And I just, I'll call myself out. One lesson is email is never the best way to communicate. Picking up the phone probably is the best, but he's not afraid to address those things with you. And it's not to make you feel bad about what you did. It's actually so you have one to grow on and how you know you can do better in the future and improve yourself. So I'll stop there.
All right, great. Well, we're going to have some other comments from the group, but let's take questions, and maybe Stephanie, you can bring people the mic and you can ask questions to Ken, and then we'll move back to Phil and folks over here. So, questions?
I just have one quick question.
So let's see if we can just get the mic over to you, please.
Just clarification on something.
Hold on.
If you want, I could also repeat the question if that's easy.
Just pass it on to the next person.
Okay, all right, thanks. My question is just clarification on one thing you said near the end. You said, and I was waiting for the politically incorrect statement, which never came, so I wasn't focusing on what you were saying, but you said, when I get dinked in the head, I have this mantra that I repeat. And my question was, how do you apply that to business? What did you mean by that for business?
Yeah, I
Repeat the question.
sure. So I spoke of these mantras that I used in football and
being
sort
dinked
of
on
my
the head.
process.
Did dinked on the head replace something politically incorrect?
Right.
Oh, okay.
So when you got banged on the head, you got a little bit of a concussion, or you got the concussion thing is the politically incorrect thing to talk about right now. But it was a reality, and so you get a little dinged in the fourth quarter of a game if it happened. but you always went back, and it became, you had a process of how to do your job, and it was unconscious competence, and it really drove whether you were whether you were conscious or not, you were able to unconsciously do your job. And I think so in business, it's those things we rely on when you get in the middle of a moment. And I'll use Kevin as an example again. Kevin has an enterprise focus, and so he's driven by a set of guiding principles and processes around those guiding principles and his objectives. And so that sort of drives Kevin's decision making, and and it also allows us to have trust. Kevin trusts me, I trust him. I would say the same of our entire team. But it's those things that people can go back on when all of a sudden, you know, you had one of those hellacious days, a customer called you, the lightning bolt took out our systems, or, you know, a hurricane hit the coast. You actually have to have something to go back on, because this is another saying, good play, bad play, next play. And if you think about business that way, right, you got a good day, bad day, next day. You have to continue pressing on. You can't go take 2 weeks off and go, I can't believe that happened. You got about 2 minutes to think about, well, how am I going to regroup? How am I going to address this? And what's our contingency plan? What's the next best thing? I got a call from Kevin Stutler about a dental systems issue, and I was at a meeting in San Diego, California. It was what, 2:30 in the morning out there, Kevin, when you called me. You said, hey, heads up. And Kevin and I immediately went into problem solving, but it was around, again, those sort of process and principles that we knew were important to the systems migration project that we were going through. And so those are the things that you rely on. You do it naturally. If you do it in a more conscientious way in preparation, it will serve you better in those moments of volatility and so on.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks.
Other questions?
You spoke of some, general leadership principles. Companies are often in a, let's say, a growth mode. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you're in a maintenance mode, and sometimes you're in a downsizing mode. Yes. In terms of leadership principles, are there any principles which you feel like are more important in the different modes? Mm-hmm. Because I think a lot of times the people or the organization are going to need different things depending on which phase you're in. Sure.
The question is, do different principles of leadership apply to different aspects of your business or phases of your business, when you're in a down cycle, you're contracting, or a growth cycle, and those things? I would probably respond that I think good leadership and business principles apply to at most all of those. We all have strong points, right? And we all have, I like the term we've used in some of the coaching, executive coaching, we all have flat spots. And so as a team, collectively, you should be able to pull from somebody's strengths where you have a flat spot. I do that all the time. We've got great people around on our team. So you try to manage through those different things. And I don't know that there's any different approach other than, I think if it's a cultural change, if you've been a market share leader and you continue to be, but yet you want to retain that and you want to have growth where you might have contraction of your business and spots, I think you need to change the mindset, the culture, reset the objectives around that, or those goals, and then I think, again, apply and pay attention. So I don't know, it's probably a pretty, that's not a real direct answer to your question, but I think those principles, if you're, should guide you and help you through those different settings.
Ken,
at least that's been my experience.
Related to Paul's question, so you guys are going along, steady growth, and then this little thing happens in Washington called healthcare reform. And could you just talk about how you manage that? I mean, you mentioned you put Kevin in a new role, but on top of being busy 24/7,
sure,
there's major changes coming. How do you think about that?
Oh, jeez. Well, it makes me sleep like a baby. honestly. I wake up every hour and cry. So that's the first one. Roll back when I think about, and you all had the same economy that we had to go through. We had a contraction of about 13% of our business, our top line revenue, from a membership standpoint in 08, 09. And managing ourselves through that crisis, because your overhead and all the things you do as an organization, and then we had to do some things that were typically different than our culture at that point. So lots of learnings about who we are, what we are, and how we function, and what we need to be to provide our social mission at Blue Cross Blue Shield, a healthier Michigan, and all of those pieces, not just talking about the health, but the economic, so on. So we went through these economic downturns. We learned a lot about our organization, and we did a lot of tough things to manage our way through that. And right behind that came what Rob asked a question about healthcare reform, and you might know it as the Patient Protection Act, Affordable Care Act, ACA, healthcare reform. It's all sort of bucketed in the same thing. It is the largest major shift that we'll have as a company, as an industry, bar none. And so we are now managing our way through that set of volatility and changes, and you're dealing with a law that was a 2,700-page document with over 1,200 references to be determined, TBDs, and so you're dealing in the unknown. You're speculating, and you're trying to say, in this corridor of potential, this is how they could regulate on that. So you're setting all of your organizational compasses to these things, and it's a huge shift. So I think we thought the economy was bad for us, and it was for everybody. We're still recovering from that, but then we come into this, and it's been a really turbulent time, and so I don't know if I answered your question, Rob, but it gave you some insights, hopefully.
I think you did. I mean, it's just
crazy time.
Well, I think about this is I know it applies to everybody from Randy and Marissa to have small businesses where you maximize your number of people and you try to keep your budget down, and then something comes that either up or down.
Yep.
It's really hard to manage that.
Yeah.
So.
The volume of work, we have our normal volume of work, and then we have this bubble. Yeah. And we think it's a bubble, but it may be a permanent bubble of work that has been put on us to be able to be compliant, address the changes, all of the things we have because of ACA and healthcare reform. And so, but confident to say that I would rather be us than anybody else in regards to how we'll manage and lead our organization through that. And again, I compliment Dan Lepp, our CEO, and our board of directors for really understanding the challenges that are ahead of us and allowing us as an organization to address them. I think you were going to...
Other questions?
Yeah.
So to go back to the football metaphor for a minute. So
okay.
I saw Warren Rustad speak a few months ago at an event, and he talked about how, as a leader, he tried to think of it as getting up for a football game. In the morning, that he would get up and he had this ritual to get his game face on, and what could he do to stay in top shape as an athlete or as a leader. He used a lot of those metaphors, and so it struck me that you were had a similar kind of experience. To me, though, as I talk to other leaders and especially entrepreneurs, what I hear is that of everybody in the organization, we typically take the least amount of care of ourselves.
Yeah.
And that we're the ones typically who are up at 2:30 in the morning or up at 4 or staying up till 11 working around the clock, and yet it feels to me like if we had an attitude of treating our bodies and our minds like athletes who had to be at peak performance to get through the day and to lead, that there's some kind of a disconnect there, I guess, between the theory and reality. So I wondered if you could address that. And, are there particular things you do to protect yourself and kind of...
Right. Absolutely, and so.
I say this having gotten up at 3 o'clock this morning to get my work done so I could come here, so that's why.
Well, and again, I know everybody's making sacrifices to be here, so I hope this is information you can use. But no, I appreciate that. I had the good fortune and blessings to go have a chance to go to a place called the Human Performance Institute in Orlando, Florida. And it sounds like a commercial. They have this thing called a corporate athlete, because there is no off season for you. There is an off season for football players, baseball, and could take the analogy, but there is no off season. In fact, one of my workout shirts, it's Nike swoosh on it, but it says, what off season? And the reality is a reminder to me again to manage my behavior to meet the objective, and the objective is to have. It's not to manage my time, it's to manage my energy, and to manage my energy, I have to manage my health. And I think Paul mentioned in his business and nutrition, and people are tired of being tired. Well, a lot of it stems from mind, body, and spirit, but the fact about balancing those things and making the importance and prioritizing, so your nutrition, your exercise, and I got a lot of those things in order because I've created rituals around them, and we're creatures of habit. In 21 days, create a new habit around that. So every almost, I'd say 6 days a week, I get up in the morning and I train. First thing I do is I read. Spiritually, then I go train. Then the day is whatever's in front of me, and I do that. The thing I haven't really mastered, to your point, is we go from end to end. One of the things I learned at the Human Performance Institute is that every 90 minutes you should take a 15-minute break, and none of us do that, right? We should set our watch so every 90 minutes you can go full out for 90 minutes, 15 minutes out. You could almost you could go probably 15 hours a day doing that, and you find it to be more productive. At least I have when I've applied that principle. My biggest issue for me, and I think you're saying it as well, is finding enough hours in the day. And so sleep is the thing that I continually have on my goal list to improve upon, because I don't get enough sleep. I know Kevin didn't last night. I know most all of you don't, and probably on a daily basis. We have a company called Bloom Health that Blue Cross Blue Shield uses as an IT solutions platform company. The serial entrepreneurial that started that, his name is Arbor, and he started Definity, he started Red Brick, and this is his third, and he sold it to 3 Blues plans, and we were one of the 3 that went in to buy it. Arbor, interesting enough, I said, what do you do? He said, my goal is, the way I make my living is with my brain and thinking, and my body physically supports that brain. His training thing is, I get no less than 8 hours of sleep a night. I cannot function at the high level I want to as a business person and give back to my company with that. So he's 8 to 10 hours a day, but when he's up, so he makes sleep a priority, which is always kind of reversed. But how many people? I have sleep deprivation probably 80% of the time. The 20% of the time I get sleep, on the weekend I get rest. Everybody in the office knows me, like, what the hell happened? It's like, whoa, because I'm so dialed in, I'm much more crisp, I'm much more clear, I'm a better listener, I'm a better thinker, and that's an assessment of myself. Others may disagree, but so I think managing your behavior to meet the objective around nutrition, exercise, managing your energy, and getting that rest is really important. And I have no work-life balance, but what I have is compartmentalized time that I'm really regimented about. I know Thursday nights, other than when my wife went with her girlfriends to the Madonna concert and I got to stay home, Thursday nights are our night, and other parts of the calendar that are sacred, and you block those off. And so, because I know I can't do my job unless I'm on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday up to date night, Friday to 4:30, and then Saturday and Sunday I'm working at different parts, but I block time. So it's whatever that is for you. I probably went way too deep with my answer, but maybe it's right, exactly. And it's you're not alone, and maybe there's ideas in there that you can pick up on, and that might help.
I wonder if we could turn it over to one of the team here. I don't know who would like to speak. Rob, just one real quick thing.
Yeah.
For those of you that are interested in learning more about the Performance Institute and Corporate Athlete Program, HPI is a sister company to Help Media. So I'd be happy to tell you more about that, but it's an awesome program. You probably went to the 2.5-day thing.
Yes, 2.5 days.
And they've actually just developed an online version of that, which is much more cost-effective.
Yep.
And pretty interesting. It's brand new. So I'd be happy to tell you folks about that, but I've been through it too, and it really is a fun program.
Did I speak?
You hit it right on. Right
Okay.
Bill?
Good morning. I'm Phil Gillespie, and I've actually known Ken for about 15 years.
Yeah.
And
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I know. I know. Feel sorry for me. But one thing about Ken is, he's a real person. He's really walked the walk, and I don't know if you know by looking at him, but one of the things he's real religious about his workouts and physical fitness. He actually has a huge transformation in his body from when he was over 300 pounds when he played football, and he really takes fitness seriously and works a lot of different things. He gets up, like he said, early every morning, and he hits it hard. But he would never ask anybody that works for him to do anything that he wouldn't do himself, and he's been real about that. And the other thing that I think is real valuable in leadership that Ken has is you're not going to get any surprises with him. You know, he's very consistent, and you don't have to in one of the things you won't have to wait for an annual review or an issue to come up, and that is a very positive factor. That's a very positive factor. So overall, what you've heard today, it's all true. He's very good.
Pass this on to your team. You have several people. Sorry, Phil. How do you pass this on to your team?
No, it's the same thing. Really, I try to encourage my people to have personal and professional goals that, again, as a coach, you try to hold them to and find ways to assist them along the way. So that's a big part of it. Kevin, did you want to say anything or so?
Sure.
Oh.
I believe probably what Ken does, and I'm the short timer. He's only been stuck with me for the last 16 months, and he clearly communicates what the expectations are. But we talked about it the first day that I came on, and we do use a lot of sports analogies. We all like sports, and with his background, and one of the things we talked about was his first illustration about NFL football coaches, and we discussed that there are two types of coaches in the NFL. There's one that treats all of his players like they're still in college, and that he's going to ramrod them each and every day and tell them what to do and how to do their job. And then there's the other NFL coach who really says, hey, we're all one team, we're here to win, and you've got a job. I'm a resource for you, and if you need me as a resource to help you be able to achieve the goal, I'm here. We'll give you all the tools that you need to be successful. We'll clearly communicate what our expectations are. We'll work together to be able to achieve those expectations, to meet and exceed those goals, and we'll win together. And Ken is the NFL coach that believes we're going to win together. You know, he clearly lets us know what the expectations are. I know where I stand every day, and that the comment about the rope to either climb or hang, that's absolutely true. You know, he said, I didn't hire you to manage you each and every minute of the day. You run your business, and if you need me, I'll be there for you. And that's been the one key thing, is that he's always there for us. The fact of the matter is, Ken will give us the rope to climb. He would never let us hang. And that's the beautiful thing.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, if you're feeling good, we're going to roast you. We got the other half of the room over here. Sue?
Sue will get me.
Yeah, Sue will get me. Tell us about the real.
That's right.
I think of Ken as, being a very upbeat, positive type of person. He never appears overwhelmed, no matter how crazy. I know that he has had his day. Extremely personable. And I would consider him a low-key type of person. Doesn't mean laid back, but he is, when you see him in a room, he has a presence about him, but he works a crowd in a special way without being, here I am. And so I noticed that about him. And I do remember the first time I met Ken many years ago at an executive staff meeting at Blue Cross. First one he went to, first one I went to. And we sat next to each other, and we were kind of feeling overwhelmed by this group of people that we hadn't interacted that much before, and that always left an impression.
Thanks, Sue.
Questions? Let's pass it over to Ellen.
You talked a little bit about coaches that were perhaps not the best, and I kind of smirked at that because when my children were growing up, I always talked about negative role models and how much you can learn from them.
Yep.
But I'm struck by the fact that as you're leading different groups and you've got a very positive team, you probably have encountered people that are not exhibiting the kind of leadership you would like. How do you coach them from the dark side over to the right side?
Yeah, that's a great question. How do you take somebody who's not really meeting the expectations or finding their way to perform at a high level? And I think there's we always talk about the concepts. Not one concept is from Good to Great, the book, and getting the right people on the bus, and then a lot of times, and she's not here this morning. She was going to come. Catherine Levine, our vice president of corporate marketing and our customer experience. So Catherine, extremely talented, a gal who grew up here in the Ann Arbor area, did her undergrad at Eastern, went to Yale for her graduate work, and works with us. Really talented gal. We brought her on, put her in the position of, we said, we're going to make you vice president of corporate marketing and product. But guess what? You're going to have to build a charter for this. You're going to have to build a charter for product. We didn't have one. It was sort of scattered about our organization. We were trying to centralize it and really drive the utility that it should be in supporting our organization. So we gave Catherine all that. And by the way, we sold our dental company, and we were going to a vendor model. And we said, here, take the dental and manage the P&L on the dental business, and a whole bunch of other things. One, we saddled her with so many things that it wasn't humanly possible to be good at that. So getting the right people on the bus, getting them in the right seat, and I'm going to get to but Catherine, what we have found, we now have refined her role down to corporate marketing and customer experience, and she is so passionate and so right. It's the right seat on the bus with our customer experience and transforming the company to be a B2C company when we've been a B2B primarily. And so I use her as an example because she wasn't a bad performer. We put her in the wrong, we might have not, we might have put her in on the bumper of the bus, and hang on, Catherine, we're going to step on the gas. Not a chance. So getting some of that is, are they good performers or not? I did a bad job as a leader, not making sure that I didn't overburden her. There was no way that she was going to have success. I didn't just give her the rope. I threw a rock on her and said, carry the boulder up the hill. It's not possible. So I did a bad job as a leader. On the other hand, we have had to separate, and all of us have had to do this in our careers. You have to separate people from the company. I will tell people in that moment, if that comes to that, through the rehab process, the performance reviews, and the change, I actually have told, and HR hates me for this, they don't even let me in the room anymore, but I have told people I'm actually mad at you because you let your family down. I have given you every chance to do the right thing for you, the company, and your family, and they let themselves down. And so maybe that's a little harsh, but after you go through the performance improvement process, the PIP process with somebody, and you give them everything to win, you actually are, you don't just give them the rope to climb the mountain, you're actually climbing the mountain for them and say, get on my back and I'll help you do that, and then they let themselves down. That's disappointing to me. So those are the two extremes where I was wrong, where I overextended myself and they weren't right. And then there's the success stories in between those that you actually, you continue to see people grow professionally, and you continue, and again, everybody's different, everybody's at a different point in their journey, and you have to treat them all differently. My interactions with Catherine Levine are different than they are with Kevin, and so on across the room. Just because they're at different points of their journey and they're different people. So I don't know if that helps, but it kind of gives you a look into sort of across the continuum of sort of situations where you're coaching people. And so I'll stop. Hopefully there was some information you could use in there. So
question. I am opened this morning with being very driven by focused execution, so I appreciate a lot of what you said today. I've asked this question before at this forum, and I think it's a common struggle for everybody. So when you're trying to drive focused execution through people, process, technology, and in that final component of technology where information is hitting people at a more rapid pace all the time, so you have your iPhones and your iPads and you have your laptops and messaging, and we're dealing with a younger generation that is constantly bombarded and constantly feeling like they've got to respond.
Yep.
What do you do in your organization to keep that focused execution and not let the distraction win the game?
It's a great question. In technology, we live in a point of real time. The other night I was at my stepdaughter's sports banquet for cross country. Actually, I skipped out. We went, they were having a meal, and then they were going to do the awards. I actually, while they were eating, I snuck out, got my iPad out because I had to read a document, respond to Kevin and another one of our executives, Joe Honer. And it was like real time. Like, they needed my feedback. I'm like, okay, I'm sneaking out of a sports banquet to do this, but it's kind of stuff. It's real time. The amount of emails, I'm sure you all get the same amount. I get about 200 to 300 emails a day. About half of them are CYA. A third of those are junk. And then there's that other part you have to sift through and respond to. We had a gentleman come in and talk to at our business summit for the division we have. And he talked about emails and managing those. And he asked a show of hands what percentage of your time, and about every hand in the room was up. It was almost 30 to 40% of people's time in a day is responding to emails. And you know, we don't really get paid to do emails. It's kind of like, oh, you get paid to play football? No, you get paid to win games. And so if emails are part of business results and you need to do those, that's, you know, and it is an expectation. It's a tough thing. It's like talking about the earlier question about managing our sleep and our rest. How do you balance against that? So we talk from time to time about, you know, emails and the imposing those on other people. Is it really necessary? Stop before you write. Stop before you send. And so we think about it a little bit that way. I would tell you we have the same challenge, maybe more so than other organizations. We're overwhelmed with response time. I won't say the name of the company, but one of our large groups that came on last year, they expect that you respond within the day, or you have failed on a service level agreement that we have. And so that's on a Sunday. I look at I've responded to them on 12:30 on a Sunday night because the CEO wrote me, and that's his expectation, and that's okay. I mean, but that's the kind of expectation. It opposes any kind of balance and sort of efficiencies. Not efficiencies, but effectiveness, sometimes that you're trying to obtain. And so, I don't know, do you have an answer for that? Maybe you have a better answer. I don't really know what the answer is. I think you knew that was going to be my answer.
My answer, based on what you said today, was, you know, if you manage your behavior to meet the objective, then you try to let all of the other distractions go away, because I run organizations where I've put people on 90-day plans tied to corporate vision, right? Not 90-day performance plans like you're out the door, but really trying to narrow their focus down to 90 days, and then always trying to drive to what are those top 3 things that you need to get done for the company in these 90 days. And what do you do to get rid of the rest of the distractions and help coach and manage them through that process? What's stopping you? You know, where are those barriers? So even trying to recommend to them, check your email 3 times a day, morning, noon, and before you go home. Try not to have it up all the time. Take MSN off your desktop and not respond to these instant messages. You know, for me, it was setting the right expectation even at home with my wife. Honey, I'll call you when I'm walking out the door at night, and that way you know I'm on my way home.
Yep.
but I don't want to talk to you during the day because chances are I'll really upset you because I'm not going to focus on what you're saying.
Yeah. Well, that's good though. I mean, if that's a reality, it's
really
better to tell somebody.
Yeah, many wives that have responded.
However, all in the same person, by the way. One
IT specialist at marriage counseling. All right.
yeah. So I think managing your behavior to meet the objective is a key message for me today.
Beautiful.
But I think it's completely in alignment with how I have behaved, but it's that succinct message.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm so glad to, and I have to give Frank Gans credit. Frank was our special teams coach. He was the head coach for the Kansas City Chiefs, and he was the head coach at the Naval Academy, and he was just an awesome guy. He passed away a couple years ago, but so many things that I took from Frank. You know, show up on time, ready to go to work. You had to show up to his meeting, including the quarterbacks and the special teams meeting, with a journal. And if you're not a student of history, you're doomed to repeat the same failures. I mean, there's all these things. So anyhow,
what I do now, and even consulting in Cody Green, is to work with the organizations on just helping them focus, helping their teams focus.
Yeah. It's just so hard in a world of distraction, I think is your point. That's great.
And here's the real person that runs.
Right.
Yeah.
You heard from our senior leaders. I sit from a slightly different vantage point, but I just wanted to share a couple of things tied to what Ken said and what the others said. In terms of Ken's leadership philosophy, the focus on team, it really is culture changing. I mean, from the vantage point that I sit, and I think probably people are more open with non-executives, but from where I sit, what I've seen is that whole his philosophy has impacted our culture in terms of making us more team focused, breaking down barriers between the subsidiary and the parent, and so that has started to really change our culture. Also, that whole mantra, that consistent communication, I know it always resonates with me, that one team, one enterprise, and I think about that just consistently, sort of as a guiding post when we talk about, you know, how to do things differently and how to work better with the parent and be more collaborative. You know, and it even plays itself out in when we're setting our goals. And so, you know, it's not all about, hey, the VCN market. It's about, you know, winning as an enterprise. And so I just wanted to share that with you because it translates itself into real results.
Thanks, Lisa.
So we're going to wrap up in a kind of a fun way, and that is...
Jumpy jacks?
Yeah. Jumpy jacks, that's good. Yeah. That is one takeaway. You know, so a lot of information, a lot of good ideas, but I'm always about action when I'm trying to coach people. And we have a meeting, and some of you that have been with me as a coach, you know, I say, okay, all this yabber we've done here, what are you going to actually walk away and do different? So if you could just write down one thing or circle one thing that you're going to do different, and not just today, but you talk about 21 days. You know, it takes 21 days to change a habit. So is there one thing that you could think of that, and not everybody, I don't want this to be forced, but I'm not going to ask everybody to do that, but if you can think about one thing that you walk away with that you're going to say, okay, I'm going to work on this. And maybe it's not a new thing, maybe it's something that was reinforced. So take a minute, do that, and then if you have something you want to say, rather than passing the mic, I'm just going to, well, I will pass the mic real fast around each table, and if there's somebody who wants to say something, and we'll wrap up that way, and you could hear what people say. You know?
That'd be great.
Okay?
And please don't say the coffee was great.
Yeah, I see a hand up back there, so Randy, we'll start back at the table here.
Ken, I was intrigued by quite a few things. I made quite a few notes, but just to pick out one, this 90-minute, 15-minute. I mean, I'm a writer. I'm spending most of my day concentrating on, and I, you know, doing maybe 3 or 4 or 7 different things, and so I've always, you know, if I kind of hit a spot where I'm not getting any farther with it, as long as it's not a deadline, then I go to the next. And I do take a lot of breaks because I just feel like I have to.
Yep.
But 15-minute break, I'm just curious. I mean, if you actually do that and you do that at the office, I mean, what do you do? That seems like a long break. What do you go run around the block, or what do you do for 15 minutes?
You know, it might be. Rob mentioned the beautiful offset. It might be to sit in a chair and look out the window, and let my adrenaline or my flow relax a little bit, and just try to relax. I'll be honest with you, and I hate to say it while others are in the room here, but my assistant Val, who probably I know the folks I'm here working with, they all know her, but I'll tell Val, knock on the door in 20 minutes, I'm taking a nap. I'll take a siesta, because you need to, because you know, that's like maybe in the middle of the afternoon, and there's dinner meetings and meetings that are going to go till about 9:30 at night, and so I'm going to go second shift. I'm getting my 20-minute nap in. I don't do that very often, but that's an idea.
No, you got to speak near you, because Ken mentioned that he sleeps like a baby. He also naps like a baby. So you know, so we're going to call your book is going to be Leadership by Babies. You know. Bob, let's do this real quick so everybody has.
So my one thing is somewhat related, and it's basically managing energy, not time. I thought that was very pertinent.
And that's from HPI. I have to give them credit for that. And the other part about it, I'll give you a little quick mantra too, is we think we can multitask. It's not physically possible. We can be fast sequencers, but we cannot multitask. So keep that in mind as you go through. And I'll quick football thing. I always told people, how'd you become a fast sequencer? I said you'd have to look at the formation of the defense, read the blitz, you'd make your call, and that all my decisions, the important decisions in football, were made between set and hut, and that's like really fast sequencing. So you learn it, like, it's a great decision-making process when you're and you have to have a decision-making tree and a process. But I get that one back to HPI and your subsidiary company.
I wrote down coach the team, lead by example, and knock down walls.
Beautiful. All right.
Well, just relearning meeting, manage to the objectives. I mean, be clear about a small number of objectives and keep coming back to them and be repetitive about them.
Yep. Be relentless. I love Governor Snyder's piece on that. Relentless positive action.
Yeah. RPA, yeah. I wrote down, Ken, authenticity. I think it is one of the most important leadership attributes, and much has been said and written about authenticity. I think you're a very authentic leader. I think your team supports that and all the wonderful comments they had to say about you, but not being afraid to admit when you make a mistake. Yeah. You've admitted several times this morning, this didn't go well, I learned from that. You let your team learn, so I say that you're probably a very authentic leader, and all of us can always practice authenticity. And I love the good play, bad play, next play. Yep. Love that.
That's true.
Really buy into everything you've said today, because that's kind of how I manage my businesses too, and I think you're right on. And I did really like managing your behavior to achieve your objectives, kind of how you started out. I think that's a really good takeaway from everything else you had to say today. Thank you.
Thank you.
I like play to talents. I think you have to use people's strengths and get everybody to work towards that end goal.
Thank you.
I've already mentioned mine, manage to the objective, so because I think that's sort of the umbrella for me today. Yeah. Everything else that you said can fit within that. So whether it's good play, bad play, next day, okay, well, that focus, that thinking still, if you have your objective in mind, all of the other philosophies for me fall under it. So.
Yeah, that's great. And in the NFL, guess what's coming? Yeah. Another game. Yeah. So you have 16 weeks, and then you have the playoffs. And I was going to play off one thing you said about, thank you for those nice comments, but one of the things I tell people, and I'm sure it's overused, maybe it's not, but go make new mistakes. We're afraid of risk. We're not risk takers, and that's part of our culture we're trying to change. But, it's okay. I'm going to err for a second, but okay, let's go make a new mistake. We learned from that one. So that's just one of those things. And so, sorry, I didn't mean to.
I liked breaking down silos and being on a level field so that everybody is clear that we're all on the same team.
Thank you.
So full disclosure, I'm a long distance runner who hates football.
That's all right.
But I kept trying to figure out how analogies from my own sport would work, so that I could sort of connect to that with my own personal experience. And one of the things that caught my interest was the idea of a mantra, because on mile 26 of the marathon, that's the only thing that's getting you that last point too, is what you're repeating over and over again in your head. And so in my work, when I'm very tired or something that is critical is coming in, it is going back to that baseline. Here's the routine. Walk in, do this, get this basic information, and then you can have the higher level function. So that idea of a mantra that is your baseline was very important.
Yeah, great. One from HPI, the doctor that did our 2.5-day session was one of the founders. He said repeatedly, "Come on." That was sort of his. I don't know if you know, but the point. I ran a half a marathon. I remember my mantra for the marathon was keep moving. I mean, that's all I could say. And I know I'm not a runner, but doing the half was the stretch for me, and it was that mantra. It's like keep moving, just keep moving. So when you hit the wall, just keep moving. Sometimes that's so.
I think this is officially the most notes I've taken at one of these, and I'm going to rewrite my entire leadership curriculum based on this. So it's going to be tough to narrow down. But I think for me, the unconscious competence discussion, because I'm also the same way. Ritual. I study Aikido, so it's all about. There's a lot of things that are ritualistic in a sense, and. Trying to get to that reaction or response and allowing flow to happen. I'm going to think about that a lot today, because when I talk about unconscious competence in regards to salespeople, you treat that as a person that is good but doesn't know they're good. Right. Now I'm going to reframe how I think about unconscious competence. You actually there are some things that are rote, and you set yourself up so that those things happen automatically, especially if they're positive behaviors. So that's something I really got to consider.
That's great.
Pass up here, anything?
So I would agree. This is probably the most I've written down coming to something like this. The one thing that really struck a chord for me was this one team, one agenda, unopposing. Yep. And I think if that is one of the best mantras, for everybody to think about.
Thank you.
I just want to say Mary is also big on the good to great, get everybody on the bus, because she runs the buses in the city here. So
okay.
She takes
There you go.
There
you go. That's great.
I think consistency of message is really important. Yeah. So that really resonated with me.
Great. Thank you.
The others? All right, we're going to give Ken a big hand here for his presentation.
Thank you. Thank you.
This is really, I saw lots of note-taking and very few cell phones out. It probably is because I warned him about Marvin, but,
Thanks, Marvin, for keeping him in.
And, Roger, when would you expect this is going to be out on, we can put this on the internet? 2 days? Okay. Not tomorrow? We'll push you. 2 days. All right, so Stephanie, Monday? Yeah. All right, so we'll send you a link. And I've quoted Ken the last two Dr. Rob Mondays, and I think I'm going to do a third one because I learned some more today, many things more. And I love the conversation about staying healthy, and I see a lot of executives that burn out, and another thing I see is that people bust out and then they hit retirement age and they don't know what to do. So it's also important to not get so addicted to your own adrenaline that, when that stops, you don't know what to do with yourself. And so building other things, building hobbies and community activity. Next month, I am going to be the speaker, and I'm afraid it's going to be a hard act to follow, but I'm actually going to talk about something I think relates to this, which is finding your career sweet spot. And the idea is, what are you passionate about? Where are your unique talents, the things you've learned over your lifetime that you can apply and you could be a specialist at? what are your values in terms of, are you doing work that you value, that society values? Does it meet your spiritual, your personal values? And then the other thing is, can you make money at it? So we're going to be going through an exercise where I'll walk you through a process to look at that. And I encourage you to come. I encourage you to also bring a family member maybe, because this is a relevant lesson for, I know you got young kids, college-age kids that are trying to figure this out. Often they go way too much to the finance first. Let's make the most money they can, and then they find that they haven't really taken care of really developing their talents. And bring a spouse if you want. So we'll have a lot of fun. It's our December event. What's the date, Stephanie?
December 7th.
December 7th, Pearl Harbor Day. I all remember that. So we'll do that, and I thank you again for coming. Please, we don't want to leave any pastries, so bring some back to your workforce. We want to thank United for sponsoring, and Zingerman's, who provide the space, and Zingerman's Coffee provides the food, and Roger for the video. So, Mirsa, you have an announcement?
Well, I just forgot to
could you pass it?
Say something earlier when I was about an opportunity to help. We're actually doing a lot in our company with infographics, if anybody knows what those are. It's kind of that visual, those long graphics that you see visually depicting things. And we've been doing a lot for ourselves, a few for customers, and we're looking to really build that portfolio. So if you know anybody or you in your own company are interested in... Okay, so an infographic is one of those big, long graphics that you see that there's a couple different types. One is they have a lot of data that they're visually, it's 50% of consumers like this, or this is, they have little people showing, or a map or whatever. But the other thing we're doing is we're taking complicated processes and turning them into pictures so that people can maybe explain the way their product works or the way their business works or whatever. And so we're just looking for people that would be willing to work with us to collaborate to put something like this out so that we have something that doesn't just have the Whole Brain Group logo on it to show. So.
We did with that. It's kind of interesting how you put the strategic plan on.
Yeah, I mean, you can do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we went through a process for developing our long-term strategic plan. Given all the changes we had with national healthcare reform, we felt it was really important to create a concise and clear focus, and consistent messaging, as Ken spoke about earlier. And so we attempted to bring the future to the present in terms of we identified our big, hairy, audacious goal. We used the book, From Good to Great, and we identified 7 key business drivers that will help us get there. And we created these vision statements, which Randy helped us craft, as if we were there in that future state 5 years from now. And so part of, you can have a plan, you can put it on the shelf, but what really helps bring the plan to life is getting employees engaged, because that's what, it's up to the employees to make it happen. So we created this single page coded placemat, front and back, with visuals and these futuristic statements of what our business will look like in 2017 if we were to accomplish our BHAG. And it's really taken off. Employees have been really engaged in the plan. They've been coming up with ideas. They've come up with, we had the BHAG challenges and teams, and they've come up with big, hairy, audacious goal. And so they come up with hundreds of ideas in terms of how we can improve our business and reach our BHAG. And that was just one of the many tools that we developed in order to engage employees. And so it's a living document, and we'll continue to refine it as the business changes, but it's certainly been effective. It's an internal document.
I was just going to say, I have some examples I can show you as well, but one example would be that we have a client who was trying to educate their customers about their product, and so we developed this thing called the Ultimate Guide to Bulletproof Glass, because they're a bulletproof glass manufacturer, and it's this big long thing that says, here's the 8 levels of protection. You don't necessarily need Afghanistan level security at your nursery school.
Only on 96.
They're in Fowlerville, actually. Here's a picture of what the 3 different layers of glass look like in the 3 different types of glass, and how you can make your selection. So instead of giving them a big 30-page white paper that people lose interest in after about 5 minutes, we have this big visual description of it. So again, we're just looking for some people, other people who we might be able to help do this so we can build our own portfolio. So that's all. Thank you.
All right, well, that's it for today. Thank you all for coming. And,
thank you so much. Thank you so much.
I was center.
Oh, all right. I knew you had a little offensive lineman in you.
Right.
So you knew the knee shot.
Right.
Where did you play it?
Well, I played in high school. I played in a club. I went to college and didn't have a team. I played on a club in college. Okay. So, but I identify a lot with the notion of being a lineman, particularly given, and particularly a center, in terms of what you have to do. But that was really very good, and I really appreciated your modeling.